Hello and welcome back, my dear students, once again to your YouTube channel. In today's video, we shall be discussing a short story from your treasure chest. So, it goes without saying that this video is for my class 9 and 10 students. And before I proceed, let me remind you if you find my videos helpful and interesting, do not forget to give me a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It shall keep me motivated. Also, if you feel my videos are helping you to write better answers in your exams, do not forget to share the video links with your friends. All right? So, without further ado, let's get started. I am on page 94 of your treasure chest, a collection of poems and short stories. And the name of today's story is The Homecoming by Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore was a Bengali poet, writer, playwright, composer, philosopher, social reformer, and painter who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913. In The Homecoming, we have the universal themes of adolescence, neglect, responsibility, love, and isolation. The story is narrated in third person by an unnamed narrator. It is the story of Photik Chakraborty, whose boyish mischief leads to his being sent away to Kolkata to live with his uncle. Tagore pierces the heart of the reader with his depiction of homesickness, rejection, and isolation. The boy's longing to return to the wide open spaces of his village home is metaphorically granted in the poignant closing lines of the story. Both the title and the last line echo this longing. So let's see what the story is. The Homecoming, Rabindranath Tagore. Photik Chakraborty was ringleader among the boys. Ringleader, the leader among the boys of the village. A new mischief got into his head. There was a heavy log is a piece of wood, lying on the mud flat of the river, waiting to be shaped into a mast for a boat. He decided that they should all work together to shift the log by main force from its place and roll it away because he was extremely naughty. What he decided is the person who's kept it for making it into a boat will find it difficult to find. So let us roll it away. He decided the owner of the log would be angry and surprised. Angry because it has been shifted away from its place, and this man would need to put in effort to bring it back to its position, and surprised because he would not know who's done it. And they would all enjoy the fun. Everyone seconded the proposal, as in everyone supported Fotik, because he was the leader who would say a no to him. And it was carried unanimously. But just as the fun was about to begin, Makhan, Fatik's younger brother, sauntered up and sat down on the log in front of them all. Without a word, the boys were puzzled for a moment. He was then pushed rather timidly by one of the boys and told to get up, but he remained quite unconcerned. He appeared like a young philosopher meditating on the futility of the games. Fotik was furious. Makhan, he cried, if you don't get down this minute, I'll thrash you because he's the elder one. So he's saying, see, my dear boy, if you're not getting down, then I will have no other option but to thrash you up. Makhan only moved to a more comfortable position, and Makhan was equally naughty. What he did was he just bulged an inch and made himself far more comfortable. Now, if Fatik was to keep his regal dignity, regal as in that of a king, before the public, it was clear he ought to carry out his threat. But his courage failed him at the crisis. His fertile brain, however, rapidly seized upon a new maneuver. Maneuver is a plan. A new maneuver which would discomfit his brother and afford his followers an added amusement. He gave the word of command to roll the log and Makhan over together. So, if Makhan is not getting down from the log, what we could do instead, Fatik said, is, you know, uh, roll the log away along with Makhan. Markan heard the order and made it a point of honor to stick on, but he overlooked the fact, like those who attempt earthly fame in other matters, that there was peril in it, there was danger in it. The boys began to heave at the log with all their might, power, calling it out, "One, two, three, go." At the word go, the log went, and with it went Markan, philosophy, glory, and all. He was also rolled over. All the other boys shouted themselves hoarse with delight, but Fatik was little frightened. He was about to get extremely hurt. He knew what was coming. And sure, Makhan rose from Mother Earth. He was on the ground. He had fallen down, blind as fate and screaming like the Furies. He was very annoyed. How could my brother do this? He rushed at Fatik and scratched his face and beat him, kicked him, and then went crying home. The first act of the drama was over. Fatik wiped his face, sat down on the edge of a sunken barge on the river bank, and began to chew a piece of grass, typical village boy. A boat came up to the landing, and a middle aged man with grey hair and dark moustache stepped on the shore. He saw the boy sitting there doing nothing and asked him where the Chakravortis lived. See how naughty he is, how he is going to reply to this man. Fatik went on chewing the grass and said, "Over there," but it was quite impossible to tell where he pointed. He did not specify where, but rather pointed out to a direction. Now, where that house is in that direction, God knows. He swung his legs to and fro on the side of the barge and said, "Go and find out." He was very irritated. "Go and find it out for yourself. Why are you asking me?" That kind of an attitude. And continued to chew the grass as before. But now a servant came down from the house and told Fotik his mother wanted him. Fotik refused to move, but the servant was the master on this occasion. Why? Because the servant was, a bigger person, an elder person, and he was far more physically strong, so he held Fotik in his arms and went away. He took Fotik up roughly and carried him, kicking and struggling in impotent rage. Rage is anger. When Fatik came into the house, his mother saw him. She called out angrily, "So you have been hitting Makhan? Now see how naughty Makhan was. He came home to report that his brother has bet him up. On the contrary, it was he who bet his brother up before coming. And he also did not tell that my brother had warned me not to sit on the log, but I did. And that is why I fell down." Fatik said suddenly, I tell you I haven't. You asked Makhan, but Makhan thought it's best to stick to his previous statement. He said, "Yes, mother, Fatik did hit me, so liar." Fatik's patience was already exhausted. He could not hear this injustice. He rushed at Makhan and hammered him with blows. "Take that," he cried. He said, "Since you say that I have beaten you up when I haven't done it, you better face the music now." And he started hitting him. And that for telling lies. His mother took Makhan's side in a moment and pulled Fotik away, beating him with her hands. When Fotik pushed her aside, she shouted out, "What? You little villain, would you let your own mother? Will you hit your own mother?" So Fatik was so angry he did not see that mother had held him. He was about to hit. And that is when the mother stopped him. "So you're going to hit your own mother now?" It was just at this critical juncture that the grey haired stranger arrived. This is the same person whom Fatik had said a little while ago, "Go and find it out for yourself." Okay, now look at the fun. Fatik looked sheepish and ashamed, but when his mother stepped back and looked at the stranger, her anger was changed to surprise, for she recognized her brother and cried, "Why, Dada, where have you come from?" So it is Fotik's uncle who has come. And Fotik did not recognize the man. As she said this word, she bowed to the ground and touched his feet. Her brother had gone away soon after she had married, and he had started business in Bombay. So the uncle was away in Bombay all these years. His sister had lost her husband while he was in Bombay. Bishambar had now come to Calcutta. Name of the person is Bishambar. Important question for your MCQ. Bishambar had now come back to Calcutta and had at once made inquiries about his sister. He had then hastened to see her as soon as he found out where she was. So he's come back from Bombay to Calcutta, and from Calcutta he's come here to find out about his sister. The next few days were full of rejoicing. The brother asked after the education of the two boys. He was told by his sister that Photik was a perpetual nuisance, permanent troublemaker, forever troublemaker. He was lazy, disobedient, and wild, but Makhan was as good as gold. This is the mother's perception, my dear students. But she always was extremely biased towards her youngest son. But Makhan was good as gold, as quiet as a lamb, and very fond of reading. So you see, Photik Chakraborty had to suffer, this idea of differentiation even at his home from his own mother, where the younger brother was given more priority than him. The widowed mother, Vishambar kindly offered to take Photik off his sister's hands and educate him with his own children in Calcutta. The offer was given, I'll take Photik with me to Calcutta. The widowed mother readily agreed. When his uncle asked Photik if he would like to go to Calcutta with him, his joy knew no bounds. Why was he overjoyed? Because he was not at all loved in his own home also. Oh, yes, uncle, in a way that it made quite clear that he meant it. It was an immense relief to the mother to get rid of Photik. She had a prejudice against the boy, and no love was lost between the two brothers. She was in daily fear that he would either drown Makhan someday in the river, or break his head in a fight, or run him into some danger or other. At the same time, she was somewhat distressed to see Photik's extreme eagerness to get away. Why is this eagerness to get away? I told you that he had suffered extreme differentiation at his home, differential treatment at home, while the younger brother was more loved by the mother. The older son was not, she was not really fond of. Okay, so he could see that he was of that age of 14, where he could realize that, he could sense that, and therefore he also wanted to go away. Photik, as soon as all was settled, kept asking his uncle every minute when they were to start. He was on pins and needles all day long with excitement and lay awake most of the night. He bequeathed to Makhan, that is, gave away in perpetuity, permanently, his fishing rod, his big kite, and his marbles. Indeed, at this time of departure, his generosity towards Makhan was unbounded. He was giving away everything. When they reached Calcutta, Photik made the acquaintance of his aunts for the first time. So he had not met the uncle. How would he meet his aunt? She was by no means pleased with this unnecessary addition to her family. Look at the irony. At home also, he was an unwelcomed guest. Here also, in his uncle's home, he is an unwelcomed guest. She found her own three boys quite enough to manage without taking on anyone else, and to bring a village lad of 14 into the midst was terribly upsetting. Bishamber should really have thought twice before committing such indiscretion. Now, this paragraph is very important, the next paragraph, that is. In this world of human affairs, there is no worse nuisance than a boy at the age of 14. He is neither ornamental, that is beautiful, nor useful. It is impossible to shower affection on him as on a little boy, and he is always getting in the way. If he talks with a childish lisp, he is called a baby, and if he is answers in a grown up way, he is called impertinent. So these are the predicaments of a boy of 14. In fact, any talk at all from him is resented. Then he is the unattractive growing age. He grows out of his clothes with indecent haste. His voice grows hoarse, rough, and breaks and quavers. His face grows suddenly angular and unsightly. It is easy to excuse the shortcomings of an early childhood, but it is hard to tolerate even unavoidable lapses in a boy of 14. The lad himself becomes, lad is a young boy, the lad himself becomes painfully self conscious. He's extremely self conscious about his identity because he starts having an identity crisis. When he talks with elderly people, he is either unduly forward or else so unduly shy that he appears ashamed of his existence. Yet it is at this very age when in his heart of hearts a young lad most craves for recognition and love, and he becomes the devoted slave of anyone who shows him consideration. But none dare openly love him, for that would be regarded as undue indulgence, and therefore bad for the boy. So, what with scolding and chiding, he becomes very much like a stray dog that has lost his mother. Very, very moving and yet very, very poignant lines. For a boy of 14, his own home is the only paradise. To live in a strange house with strange people is little short of torture. With the height of bliss is to receive the kind of looks of women and never to be slighted by them. It was anguish to fatigue to be the unwelcome guest in his aunt's house, despised by this elderly woman and slighted on every occasion. Every moment he would be scolded. If she ever asked him to do anything for her, he would be so overjoyed that he would overdo it, and then she would tell him not to be so stupid, but to get on with his lessons. The cramped atmosphere of neglect in his aunt's home oppressed 40. No, so he was oppressed in his own home. Now here also he is oppressed. He wanted to go out into the open country because he's a village lad. He's used to, the open sky and the green fields and the ponds. Now he's living in a concrete house. So he's finding it extremely suffocating. But there was no open country to go to. Surrounded on all sides by Calcutta houses and walls, he would dream night after night of his village home and long to be back there. He remembered the glorious green fields, where he used to fly his kite all day long, the broad river banks where he would wander about the livelong day, singing and shouting for joy, the narrow brook where he could go and dive and swim at any time he liked. He thought of his band of boy companions over whom he was a despot, and above all, the memory of that tyrant mother of his who had such a prejudice against him. So, thoughts kept coming back. A kind of physical love like that of animals, a longing to be in the presence of the one who is loved, an inexpressible wistfulness during absence, a silent cry of the innermost heart for the mother, like the lowing of a calf in the twilight. This love, which was almost an animal instinct, agitated the shy, nervous, lean, uncouth, and ugly boy. No one could understand it, but it preyed upon his mind consciously. So he had nobody to talk to, he had nobody to express his heart. In fact, even if it was quite sure that even if he was trying to express or, share his thoughts, no one would understand him. Because remember, his mother did not understand him. So, how could we expect others to understand him? There was no more backward boy in the whole school than Footy because he was from the village and these people were from the city. He gaped and remained silent when the teacher asked him a question, and like an overladen ass, patiently suffered all the blows, all the beatings that came down on his back. When the other boys were out at play, he stood wistfully by the window and gazed at the roofs of the distant houses because he could not believe and that the open sky could be obstructed by such big buildings. And if by chance he espied children playing on the open terrace of any roof, his heart would ache with longing because he wanted to be open. He wanted to be among his friends. One day he summoned up all his courage and asked his uncle, "Uncle, can I go home?" His heart is echoing. He is unable to stay here. He wishes to escape, run away from everything. His uncle answered, "Wait till the holidays come." But the holidays would not come till November, and there was a long time still to wait. One day, Futik lost his lesson book. Even with the help of books, he had found it very difficult indeed to prepare his lesson. Now it was impossible. Day after day, the teacher would cane him unmercifully. His condition became so abjectly miserable that even his cousins were ashamed to own him. They began to jeer, that is, make fun of, and insult him more than the other boys. He went to his aunt at last and told her that he had lost his book. So he was not only bullied, he was physically assaulted also. To top it all, he was already trying to cope up with a mutilated heart. He was already trying to cope up with the fact that he is an unwelcomed guest at his uncle's house. Even in his own house, he did not have any respect. His aunt pursed her lips, that is, closed her lips in contempt, and said, "You great clumsy country lout, how can I afford with all my family to buy you new books 5 times a month?" That night, on his way back from school, Fotik had a bad headache with a fit of shivering. He felt he was going to have an attack of a malarial fever. His one great fear was that he would be a nuisance to his aunt. So, because he would fall sick and his aunt would need to take care of the child, Fotik was scared that what if I fall ill now? Again, she's going to feel the burden of tending to me. Such a poor fellow. The next morning, Fotik was nowhere to be seen because he had ran away. He did not want to be a burden anymore. All searches in the neighborhood proved futile. The rain had been pouring in torrents all night, and those who went out in search of the boy got drenched through to the skin. At last, Bishambar asked help from the police. At the end of the day, a policeman stopped at the door before the house. It was still raining and the streets were all flooded. Two constables brought out Fotik in their arms and placed him before Bishambar. He was wet from head to foot, muddy all over. His face and eyes flushed red with fever. He was extremely unwell, and his limbs were trembling. Bishambar carried him in his arms and took him into the inner apartments. When his wife saw him, she exclaimed, "What a heap of trouble this boy has given us." So instead of asking how the child was or where he was found, she just directly says, "This child has been an extremely troublesome for us." So you see, these constant insults, this constant belittling, this constant marginalization started eating Fotik up from within. One thing you must realize, children, more than physical insults, more than physical injuries, the trauma that you inflict on a person psychologically affects him the most. So we need to be extremely cautious with the words that we speak, lest we end up hurting people. And we never know to what extent a hurt soul can go to. Anyway, coming back, the fever rose. Fatik heard her words and sobbed out loud, "Uncle, I was just going home, but they dragged me back again." He said, "I did not want to come back here. I wanted to run away to my village, but the police got me here. Please understand that I did not want to come here and give you all trouble." The fever rose very high, and all that night the boy was delirious. That is, he was speaking nonsensical things in fever. Bishambar brought in a doctor. Fotik opened his eyes, flushed with fever, and looked up the ceiling and said vacantly, "Uncle, have the holidays come yet? May I go home?" Because he's finding it extremely difficult to stay here. His heart is in his village. His soul is in the village. He's just here physically. Bishambar wiped his tears from his own eyes because even Bishambar was moved seeing the plight of the child and took Photik's lean and burning hands in his own and sighed by him through the night. The boy began again to mutter. At last his voice became excited. Mother, he cried, don't beat me like that, mother. I'm telling the truth. So he is trying to confess that mother, all through the day, every day, all my life you have misunderstood me. But please realize I haven't done. He's trying to make his mother understand, but all in his dreams. The next day, Fotik became conscious for a short time. He turned his eyes about the room as if expecting someone to come. At last, with an air of disappointment, his heart sank back on the pillow. He turned his face to the wall with a deep sigh. Bishamber knew his thoughts and, bending down his head, whispered, Fotik, I have sent for your mother. So he had been looking for his mother, the uncle understood. The day went by. The doctor said in a troubled voice that the boy's condition was very critical. He will not be able to survive, the doctor said. Fotik began to cry out, By the mark, 3 fathoms, by the mark, 4 fathoms, by the mark. He was thinking as if he is traveling by the sea. He had heard the sailor on the river steamer calling out the mark on the plumb line. Now he was himself plumbing an unfathomable sea. This is the twilight moment. Actually, Fotik is going to pass away soon. So he had reached that stage. He is not in his senses. Later in the day, Fotik's mother burst into the room like a whirlwind and began to toss from side to side and moan and cry in a loud voice. At the end of the day, it's her own son, no? Bishamber tried to calm her agitation, but she flung herself on the bed and cried, Fotik, my darling, my darling. Fotik stopped his restless movements for a moment. His hand ceased beating up and down. He said, Ah. The mother cried again, Fotik, my darling, my darling. Fotik very slowly turned his head and without seeing anybody said, Mother, the holidays have come. So after seeing the mother, he dies. He had been waiting as if for the mother to come, as if to give out one final statement that all my life I have been a perpetual nuisance to you, my dear mother. But trust me, I love you. I did not mean to hurt you. So, this is the story, my dear students. It is extremely moving, it is extremely heart wrenching. The story beautifully documents how a 14-year-old boy, rather, an adolescent, feels the troubles that he goes through. All right. I hope I could give you a very lucid explanation of the story. If you find this video helpful and interesting, most importantly, helpful to write your answers and score you better marks, do not forget to give me a like and share. Also, you could share this channel link with your friends so that they may get equal help. See you in the next video very soon. Till then, take very good care of your health and goodbye.